Uh, is this working? All right. Yes, I can hear myself. I think that is good. Can you hear me? I assume so. Can you see me? I hope you can. Perfect. Hello there, and welcome to this stream. That is later than it was planned and all of that. Anyway, hello, Michael over there at Bibliophile Bookscape. Also, hello, the once again renamed Mr. Hayward. Demidrack, how are you doing? Hello, Ori, how are you doing? So yeah, it's been quite the week. No, I originally wanted to do this obviously yesterday, which would be the normal day, the last Saturday in the month, and then rock and roll happened, and I realized that I had promised a friend to go to a concert with him. That was yesterday, so I did that, and I did get this wonderful new T-shirt, which looks very 80s. Also, it says in German, "Drink beer and destroy," so I kind of had to get that. Anyway, um, speaking of, let's start this, shall we? Cheers, everybody. So yeah, and today I already had a meeting with a local music association, club, whatever you want to call it, where we organize concerts and a small festival and stuff like that. And we had our annual sort of like all members meeting to re-elect the new board and all of that kind of stuff. So that happened. Hey, Chadia. And Britain, how are you doing? And Jin, how are you doing over there? Wonderful. So yeah, I had that meeting. So it's always depressing. Obviously, the club has no money because organizing concerts is way more expensive, and you never make money with art and entertainment. So that was that. But apparently, I am still the president of that club. So there's that. And yes, that's because no one else wants the job. Okay, so you're either a Gistal or a Demidirect. Now that's an interesting conflict of interests I can see there. Can you serve two masters? I have not yet started any wars. I have at least ended 8+ wars. I surely will get a Nobel Peace Prize any day now. Hey Thornall, how you doing? Unfortunately, I have no powers to execute anyone, which is, I assume, what executive powers means, right? No, it's like a just a German law thing. If you have like an actual association registered association, you have to have a treasurer and you have to have a president. You can also have a vice president. You don't necessarily need that. But those are just like things you need to have and be registered with, like the courts and everything. And someone has to, do that. And in theory, also, talk to people when we're asking for funding or stuff like that. And someone has to be representative and stuff like that. And not that I'm a very representative kind of person, but no one else wants the job either. So, someone has to. Hey, Kale, how you doing? And yes, You are right. Midnight Tides is a great book. I really love it. It's probably my favorite. It or maybe Reaper's Gale are my favorites. So yeah, I've been reading all kinds of stuff and still sort of like trying to figure out what to read next. So that's a bit of a struggle there. I mean, I am rereading Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of Late Capitalism by, Frederick Jameson. Sorry, I'm trying to figure something out here, and it's why is this stuff so complicated? I'm trying to read the chat in like the restream thing, but obviously this can't be made easily. All right, we're not doing that. Oh, how was Soldier Son, Chadia? Did you like it all the way to the end? Yeah, no, and so I'm reading Postmodernism or the Cultural Logic of like Capitalism, but I've also started reading a book called The Enchantments of Mammon, which is a history of American capitalism and how capitalism is sort of deeply ingrained in Christianity, or at least American Christianity, and the other way around. So, but I'm only like one chapter in, so, and it's a massive book, like 800, 900 pages, I think. It's really big, from 2019. Well, wait, so you are saying that you have just read a trilogy by Robin Hobb that you didn't like? I mean, obviously, like everyone seems, we talked about that in the past, where like Robin Hobb fans are weird in that Robin Hobb fans think that Robin Hobb is the best author ever to grace the earth, and her prose is the best, and her characters are the best. And then they really hate at least one series of hers, whether it's the Rain Wilds, which is supposedly the worst thing ever written, or it is the Soldier Son trilogy. There's like no moderation with those kind of people. I don't know what you mean by like how do I read so fast, Thornall. I mean, as I said, I have started these. The thing with the postmodernism one is I need to be able to really focus for that one, because it's very dense. Marxist cultural criticism, and that stuff is it makes words do a lot of work. So you have to pay attention. So it's not necessarily something I can listen to as audiobook while I don't know, on a bus or like on a commute. I need to be at home and ideally, do nothing else. So it's very difficult for me to go through that one really quickly. And the other one I just started today, and it's a history book, and that's nice. Okay, so it's just the third book that didn't really work for you. Yeah, I mean, I still have to get back to Robin Hobb in general, because it's been years since I last read any of that stuff. Maybe, God, it's probably like over a decade since I last read any Robin Hobb. So I guess maybe I should get back to that. Who knows? Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, I want to read. I want to be done with the history one, the Enchantments of Mammon by Thursday, because Thursday is when Virtual Light comes out. I'm really excited for Virtual Light. Now, obviously, Virtual Light has been out for 40 years by now, roughly, I think. At least 30, 35, something like that. It's the first part of the Bridge trilogy by William Gibson, and it has not had an audiobook for the longest time. Now, the third book in that trilogy, All Tomorrow's Parties, has had an audiobook for a long time. The second book, which is Idoro, has had an audiobook region locked to the US for, well, also some time, but less time than the third book. So they're releasing them in reverse order, which is really weird. And Virtual Light finally has an audiobook coming out this month, so I can finally get to the second, well, the one William Gibson series that I haven't read yet, the one trilogy that I haven't read yet. And I'm very excited for that. But that's all the books I have on my list of stuff I want to read in February, I think. I I constantly update, sort of like I have one text file where I just write down all the books that I want to read or that I need to pay attention to, yeah. So I need to check whether I have more in February. Like the interesting stuff I feel is like March and April. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming in that time. I feel like, but I might be wrong. Well, let me check. Ah, here we go. Well, I mean, Jenny Wirtz's Ships of Mirior and what's the other one? Warhost of Vastmark are coming out in March. That's interesting. Although, well, maybe at that point I can actually start the series. What with 5 out of 11 books being published by now in audio, so that's nice. And the Best of Gene Wolfe is coming out in March in audio. That's nice. Oh, there's something. None Such by Francis Bufford is coming out on the 10th of March, so I guess that's something I will be reading for sure. But yeah, February I have nothing except for the William Gibson one. But it's basically an entire trilogy because at that point I can also read Idoro and All Tomorrow's Party, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, like whether like listening to audiobooks is faster than reading, I think kind of depends on your reading speed as a reader and your willingness to speed up audiobooks because I feel like a lot it really depends, obviously, and there's like no fixed sort of like way to measure like the length, but usually 100 pages narrated in audio format are roughly 4 hours of audiobook. So you can kind of calculate how that stuff works. And that's, give or take a little bit. And you can obviously speed that up if you feel like it. I guess you can measure yourself like how long it takes for you to read 100 pages and whether that is 4 hours or less. So there is some give there. But the main thing is like having a lot of time. Like that's the main thing is like I can read a lot or listen to a lot of audiobooks because I have a lot of time. And that, helps. Well, I mean, you can read Blackheart Man in in February. Um, Famously, Nalo Hopkinson, Caribbean author. I think you can get away with that for Black History Month. I have read A Fire Upon the Deep a long time ago, but that's the only Vinci I've read, except of course, that famous Singularity essay. That one I have read as well. I wanted to read. Interesting enough, I've been looking that up yesterday or the day before. I was thinking about getting. Is it called The Snow Queen? Something like that. The novel Wingy's wife, Joanne Wingy wrote, and it won a Hugo, I think, and a Nebula. Lots of awards, and I've always wanted to read that book. And I remembered it a couple of days ago, so maybe I'll read some Wingy, but not Werner. I mean, the I did read Halcyon Years last week and really enjoyed it. It's fun. Also, Yuri Gagarin gets punched a lot, so there is fun to be had there. I mean, it's Jonathan Lethem. What do you expect? Of course, it's a weird book. Hey, Ida, how you doing? Yeah, it's one of those classics that, like, I feel like everyone has heard of, but not that many people have read The Snow Queen, like in our generation, or like in not in our generation, but like in of the people doing booktube things. Very few people have actually read The Snow Queen, so I'm very excited for that one. We'll see how that goes, but might be something for February. Doing a lot of like reading of older books in February, I guess, and also catching up on stuff from like last year that I kind of have missed out on. I mean, there's The Everlasting by Alex Harrow. I'm still very much interested in that one. There is the Book of Records, which I also really still want to get to. That sounds like exactly the kind of book I find fascinating because it's lots of waffling, I think, and I like lots of waffling. Embassy Town and the Martian Chronicles. Now that's an interesting one. I do really enjoy the Martian Chronicles. I feel like they're a really fun kind of approach to sci-fi in a lot of ways, and I do enjoy that. Um, Ray Bradbury. Someone, John W. Campbell didn't really appreciate, apparently, because too, I guess, not masculine enough. I don't know. Oh, that's the follow-up to Will of the Many, right? I haven't read that either because I doubt it's my kind of thing. The Illuminatus trilogy is so much fun. It's all over the place. It's like a more in your face sort of like thing compared to what, say, someone like Thomas Pynchon does in a lot of ways when it comes to the paranoia and drugs and shit. But it's just like more like a Gonzo version of that, like way more tuned up in up to 11 and much faster paced and more ridiculous even than something like Gravity's Rainbow. Yeah, and I really really enjoyed. So yeah, definitely something I reread from time to time because it's just so entertaining and so funny and so fucking angry. But yeah, mostly I'm just glad I'm done with the Karl May stuff because that, like, at the end was like a real drag because it's they're really long books and they're really repetitive. And yes, you can read them easily, but it's still Every single time a train is robbed, it's the same exact setup, like 4 or 5 times in all the books that I've read. And just imagine how many more train robberies Kalmai has written that were all the same train robbery. Yes, Ida, we are not talking about that one. That one I have also read. No, we're talking about the one by Joanne Vinge, wife of Werner Vinge, and winner of a Hugo in 1981 or so. So that's the one we're talking about. So Illuminatus is roughly about several things, right? So it's set mostly in the 1960s. Um, and it's about the Illuminati trying to immanentize the eschaton. So bring down the apocalypse basically. And then there's a group of mostly libertarian, anarchist, whatever kind of people who are fighting against that. So you have like lots of secret societies fighting against each other, fighting for control of the world. With lots of drugs, paranoia, and weirdness. Also, undead Nazis and a weird fascist rock group that is playing in the home of near Ingolstadt in Bavaria, playing a large concert there to immanentize the eschaton, to call up those undead super soldiers and Nazis, and it's a lot. It's weird. It has lots of James Joyce references. It has lots of ridiculous Lovecraft jokes in it. So yeah, it's very, very meta in a lot of ways. And it ties into the whole like return of like the Illuminati as like anarchist action from like the 1970s, 60s, and 70s, with a lot of weird Operation Mindfuck kind of stuff built into that. So highly entertaining, weird, and very hard to describe. Yes, it is also about a dolphin, sex with apples, and a big dick. That is also very much part of it. And it's a very it's a dolphin that sings sarcastic songs about sharks while swimming through the ruins of Atlantis, among other things. Yeah. um yeah, like from what I saw of the Will of the Many, I was like, well, this seems to be another sort of like competition, high, uh magic school kind of thing, training thing, which sounds YA-ish, and I don't know if I'm a big fan of any of that. Maybe at some point, but there's so many other books I still need to read. Well, I mean, you could just order books on, say, bookstore.com, for example, because then you avoid paying the tithe to the Amazon overlords, which might be a good thing, all things considered. That would be really funny. So that's a bit like We Are Legion, We Are Bob, or whatever that book is. That sounded so fucking stupid. And everyone is talking about like how brilliant the Bobbyverse is. It's called Bobbyverse. Unless it's about British cops, I don't want to read it. It's very simple. Yeah, but like I don't necessarily know that much about YA. I don't think like it's one of those categorizations that I don't really get. Um, but there's a lot to be talked about there. Where I feel with the whole idea of how YA is often sort of like the field that like women authors are pushed into writing because somehow that's what you do, and its audience is also more and more like young women coded, I think, in a way that feels weird to me, but I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't think it is capitalism. Um, I suspect that is not allowed. But yeah, so I was just like very happy to read Halcyon Years. Alistair Reynolds has become one of those authors where I'm like, yeah, this is like no book that Alistair Reynolds has written that I didn't at least enjoy, right? There are some that I like more than others, but it's nice to have those kind of dependable authors where I can go like, well, yeah, this is awesome. Something I will not be disappointed by, and I know that in advance. Something I found really interesting there, and I don't want to talk about like what socialism or capitalism is in this regard, but something that Frederick Jameson talks about in the prologue to um, postmodernism or the cultural logic of like capitalism is that capitalism as a term is already ideological in that like if you say capitalism, and this may have changed, but if you use the word capitalism, you are automatically seen as a leftist. And there's a large group of people who don't even talk about capitalism when all it describes is just an economic system, right? And that I found really interesting. It's like, well, and like some people on the ultra far right and libertarian side also use capitalism as a word, as a neutral description, but there's a large group of people who just don't actually use it, which is weird when we're talking about something that we all have to live with, right? Yes, he did write one that's called House of Suns. That is something Legion-like. That was like one of the first ones I read by him. My memories are very dim. I know everyone thinks a lot of people tell people, advise to start with House of Suns and think it's the best one. My suspicion is it's usually just because that's the only one they've read. Um, I did like it. It's fine. Um, it's not my favorite Reynolds. I find his like weirder standalones really interesting, like stuff like Century Rain, which is weird parallel universe stuff, and this guy is sent like to our 1920s Paris or 1930s Paris to to be a private investigator and stuff. So that was really interesting. And then he has Terminal World, which is, I don't know, some kind of adventure story about this guy who's about this angel, um, literally a guy with like wings. It's called an angel, but obviously some genetic kind of thing. And he's traveling in like an airship for a while because this planet that he came up with, that setting, has like different zones, like on this planet where different levels of technology function. So he has to get back to like the actual like top of the to that one zone where his weird flying technology can work, and so he has to go through all these other technological zones, which seems like something that Werner Vinci also played with, but it's more concentrated on just like one planet there. So Alistair Reynolds has written a bunch of really weird standalones, and Pushing Ice is another one, which, yeah, weird shit. See, but that's the thing. I haven't read The Incandescent. I really enjoyed the first one, like not the first one, like Emily Tesh's debut novel. I really enjoyed that one. Some Desperate Glory, amazing book. And then I read like the description, like the back cover blurb kind of thing for the Incandescent, and I'm like, Magic School, fuck that. I'm not reading that, which is a shame because I suspect it's a good book because Emily Tesh clearly can write, but I just don't care for that kind of stuff. It's the same way that like I don't think like dark academia is something that I enjoy, or the things that are sold as dark academia these days is not necessarily something that I enjoy to reading because it's just another fucking school. What is um yeah, you're right. There's like Amazon has so much power and like owns so much. It's a monopoly in a lot of ways, which is why antitrust is like a really important thing to do. um and yes, you will still pay Amazon for all the technology, the web services, the cloud services, all of that kind of stuff, right? You will still pay them for that, but you can still buy books at a local bookstore, which is good for the local bookstore, right? So there is that. Which one is the one, the Sanderson one that you mean? But yeah, no, I don't know. I have no idea what Pluribus is about. I know it is something that people watch and think is good. Maybe, I don't know. With Alistair Reynolds, it really depends on what you want, Breton, right? So he has this sort of larger universe, the Revelation Space universe, so to speak, because Revelation Space, I think, was the first novel published within that. And so you have like, there's several sort of like series and standalones set in that world. So there's a standalone, it's called Chasm City, which is a bit noir, grimy in a lot of ways. Um, then there is the Revelation Space, Absolution, Gap, and Redemption Arc, right? Revelation Space, Redemption Arc, Absolution, Gap. Inhibitor Phase is also part of that. They are an ongoing series around the larger world, basically, and that larger universe. And then there is, of course, the Prefect Dreyfus trilogy of police procedurals. They are also set in that universe. So it's a hard sci-fi world, hard sci-fi universe. Humanity has conquered, like, settled a large, a bunch of places, and it's relatively hard sci-fi. It also has hyper pigs, which are cool because they're uplifted pigs who can do a lot of stuff, and they're also discriminated against because of course that's what people do. No, that is really good. Then he has the Poseidon's Children trilogy. That's Blue Remembered Earth and two others that I can't recall the title right now. Um, that is on Earth. It's mostly set in Kenya, so that's an interesting sort of like approach, and it's about stuff happening on Earth, and also like a large generation ship being sent to a different planet, a different star system, and what people discover there. Also, lots of elephants, maybe even intelligent elephants. So really cool stuff there as well. And then he has this sort of like pile of standalones. You have House of Suns, which is, yes, a sort of Legion book in a lot of ways. Um, and it has like this massive sort of like time scale of like millennia, hundreds of thousands of years, basically. And every so so the setup is you have this sort of like person who basically cloned herself into actively into thousands of people, and they like every couple of thousand years, everyone from that family basically meets, all of these clones meet and talk about what they discovered and shit like that. And then there's some intrigue around that, and it's a good book. It didn't really, I don't know, I liked it, but it's been so long that I don't remember that much of it. So there's that one. And then you have Pushing Ice, which is about well, people uh, water mining, or at least grabbing and then extracting stuff from comets and asteroids. Hence, pushing ice, because they're pushing comets around. And then something happens, and that crew of that spaceship is whisked away to a different place and has to wrestle with those kind of things. It's also relatively hard sci-fi for the longest time, and a lot about it is about the relationships within that spaceship crew under pressure, and sort of like all on their own and so forth. That is another one. Then he has Century Rain, as I said. That's sort of like Hard Boiled in Paris with parallel universe stuff going on. He has a Terminal World, which is that weird adventure thing with the angel and airships and shit. That is really fun. He has Eversion, which is hard to describe. It's sort of like a nested kind of thing of several stories that tell one larger story with a big twist at the end. I really enjoyed that one because each of the sort of like parts of the novel is written in the style of a different era of science fiction. So you have something in the 19th century that feels very Jules Verne, Edgar Allan Poe, sort of like in a lot of ways, and then you have something that is more like 1920s adventure, 30s adventure pulp sci-fi, and then you have something that is more modern sci-fi and so forth. So that is just a really, really cool and interesting concept. And yeah, the newest one is, as I said, Halcyon Years, which is Yuri Gagarin as private detective on a generation ship. Yeah, like Black Company, I really enjoy. Dan Cook does use a lot of metaphors. Yes, an intelligent. That's very much true. Not so. I hope that quick overview over whatever it is that Alistair Reynolds does helped you pick one, Britain, there, because I feel they're all good. When it comes to like a standalone, I can see you enjoying, say, Chasm City, or Eversion, or Halcyon Years, because they are, or even Century Rain. I feel they might be something you could potentially enjoy. When it comes to the series, yeah, I don't know. The like Revelation space stuff is more traditional, old school, hard sci-fi with like space archaeology and shit. Well, that would be a Tchaikovsky novel, right? If he were a raccoon. um, which might be the one Adrian Tchaikovsky novel that I'm going to read because Raccoon. But yeah, no, it's Yuri Gagarin is a human, but he has a robot sidekick. He has named Sputnik because, of course, he has. There's too many books with like intelligent raccoons in it, um, or movies or comics, right? Because in Autumn Blue 6 by Ian McDonald, there's also a group of uplifted, slightly modified, genetically modified raccoons who are very smart and do smart things. So yeah, but then again, I mean, raccoons, kind of cool. Also, absolutely annoying if you actually have to, encounter them from time to time. That is true, Chadia. They are very intelligent already. Now it's more like, intelligent and in capable of communication with humans through whatever means. You mean the Uplift series? I have not read those, Thornall. No, I'm aware of them, but I haven't read them. Um, yeah, I feel like if you if I had to guess what would be more dangerous to humanity, pure AI or somehow modified raccoons, I feel like modified raccoons might in fact bring about the end of humanity, justifiably so, right? Well, okay, I didn't know about that. I now I want to look into what kind of why he what got harassed by furries, but maybe I don't want to know that. Architect of sleep. Raccoon-like beings. In a lot of ways, humans are very raccoon-like beings, I think. So yeah. So that's the reading stuff that I've been doing of late. Maybe I'll even manage to do some video stuff tomorrow or this week. I really want to get back to the whole like AI thing and get it done with, ideally before any of the big AI companies goes bust. Because otherwise, it would feel kind of stupid to go like, "Hey, the AI bubble has popped, but here's a video explaining why AI is bad." It's like, you know. Ah, okay. So they wanted him to republish it, and he got pissed by and that's why he said he won't republish it. Okay, sounds complex. Now AI, there's so much to be said about like AI. I think there's the main two things right now that generative AI in particular does is on the one hand, um, you know, it can be a tool for owners of capital to further crack down on employees, fire them, rehire them with less money. The general automation stuff. That's the one side. The other side is that it allows fascists in particular to remake the world in a way they want to see it. It allows them to change reality in a way that they are otherwise not able because they don't have the skills like that you need for art. So instead, they have a machine that can then do that. That's a lot of the stuff you see right now, whether it's all the fucked up shit that Grok is doing, or the memes, the changing the image of that arrested civil rights lawyer and protester so that it looks as if she was crying. It's that kind of stuff that I feel is really insidious. That sort of like slowly shaping, warping reality even more, and allowing everyone to do that because we all kind of sometimes want to change reality. It's just that most of us can't. That is really good for an all. See, I definitely recommend Ian M. Banks's Culture series. The thing is, Elon Musk has not understood Ian M. Banks at all. Whenever Elon, like, there's this whole thing that how fascists in particular are really bad at reading media and are purposefully misreading media in a lot of ways. But with Elon Musk, I feel like he's just too stupid to get it. Like Ian M. Banks was a member of the Socialist Party of Scotland, right? He is very much not a fan of capitalism in any way, shape, or form. That's why he creates a post-scarcity anarchist utopia. That's not what Elon Musk wants. He just wants to have cool robots that do everything for him. It's like so. Yes, read Ian M. Banks, and then you will understand why Elon Musk is incredibly stupid. I mean, you already hopefully already know that, but yeah, he's really bad at reading books. Yes, he is going to toot his own horn, I guess. That Michael, or maybe it's God's horn. I don't want to know where that goes. But yeah. So yes, Ian M. Banks, really good author. I still need to read his literary fiction stuff like Wasp Factory, that kind of stuff. But I haven't gotten around to that one either. Now raccoons are really cute, but like we have a lot of raccoons in Germany because of Nazis. Literally, because in the 1930s, the Nazis brought raccoons to a like wildlife resort kind of thing, um, for hunting, possibly also for fur farming. And during World War II, obviously they escaped. And what with Germany not having large predators, I mean, wolves are slowly coming back, but nothing that could eat or attack or even slightly endanger raccoons. They have been spreading out throughout Germany massively, and I guess they are slowly moving into other European countries. So maybe Nazis will actually conquer all of Europe through raccoons. After all, it's who knows. But the thing is, that original like sort of raccoon ground zero for Europe is like 50 kilometers north from where I live. So there's lots of raccoons out here, and they are fighting over trash cans in summer when I try to sleep, and that is really annoying. I agree. I agree that he wants people to tell him that he's funny, and robots can't do that, convincingly. Which is why he usually dresses up those humans as robots, so they can then tell him that he's funny, which he, isn't. No, it's not cyberpunk. It is very much far future stuff. They vary in tone. Like it's called the Culture series, right? But it is not an ongoing series. They are like even like if you go read them in publication order, they are jumping around in the timeline a lot. They're all over the place, and they shift in tone and style. Like the first one is really sort of macabre and has some really gory, weird shit going on. Uh, that really grotesque in a lot of ways. The second one, Player of Games, is a much tighter and quicker read and follows this guy who's really good at playing games. So he's sent to this international, intergalactic weird gaming competition where this one empire is usually selecting the ruler through basically a chess championship, or more like Warhammer 40k, I guess. So they're playing like this massive strategy game, and who wins that game, like your skill with that game determines what kind of jobs you get in that society. And he's sent in as as an external person to play there, and obviously at the same time he's an agent for the culture, and he kind of realizes that after a while, and so forth. It's a really cool book. And then you have Use of Weapons, which is a novel that has an interesting thing it does with timeline. So it has two narratives basically, and one series of chapters goes backwards in time and one moves forwards in time, and at some point they obviously then intersect. And that is about this guy who's once again an agent for the culture, and he's basically a mercenary who is sent to all kinds of like planets to do military shit, and he repeatedly gets more or less almost killed, and it talks about like why he does that, why he keeps doing that, and so forth. And it's a really good book. I really like it. um but it's very much far future sci-fi, with weird stuff happening. Well, have fun at work, Kale. Well, I mean, survive work. Thanks, Thornall. Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I was trying to make a point, trying to figure out how to do that. And then we had all that snow, and I'm like, hey, I should probably film something outside as long as we have all of that snow. So I forced myself to make to come to a point there. That's interesting. I will have to check. In theory, I have set the like I have disabled automatic YouTube filtering, so it shouldn't do that. But YouTube is weird sometimes; it just loses comments and shit like that. I will have to double check. I feel like the word "dick" shouldn't be a problem, though. I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to rank who's the evilest there. Right now, my point was more that Elon Musk is just really, really bad at reading books and understanding what books are about. And in that field, he might just be the worst of the lot. Followed by Peter Thiel, who is also not exactly very smart at reading books. But like Elon Musk is very, very, very bad at reading books. That's just the point. Well, if that is what you wanted to do, then I'm glad you did it, and I hope it works out for you. And I gladly cheer you back with what is today not a beer but a radler, because I too wanted to cut down a bit on the alcohol after last month, which has been rough for all kinds of reasons. So not the full dose today. Well, I don't know if Bill Gates has that much of a Neil Stephenson fetish. I mean, they all have a Neil Stephenson fetish, though. I mean, that's the thing. Like Neil Stephenson worked for Blue Origin, right? That's one of those funny things that I didn't know. But apparently, in the early when Jeff Bezos started his space company, he hired Neil Stephenson to do, I guess, some stuff there. So that's that. And I mean, Mark Zuckerberg named his company after the metaverse, which is a term that Stevenson coined. So yeah, everyone has a Neil Stevenson fetish, I guess. Snow Crash is, I wouldn't call it a parody, but it is certainly very ironic. I mean, that's like the big problem with a lot of big tech people in general, like, is that they read a lot of cyberpunk and thought that's the future that we want, when cyberpunk has always been like, hey, if we don't do something, this will be the future that we get. Maybe we should do something about it. And neither the world in William Gibson's Sprawl trilogy nor the world in Snow Crash is a world that we want, I think. It's not described as like a really cool place. I mean, except for like all the teenagers skateboarding again. I mean, that is pretty cool. Um, But like society is really fucked in those novels, and somehow people have not really figured that one out and go like, no, clearly that's what we want. So yeah, not a parody, but certainly it has elements where it parodies specific aspects of, or pokes fun at specific aspects of society and so forth, right? Like that whole long memo over toilet paper use in the U.S. government is certainly a parody written by, well, Neil Stevenson, who is used to be a very very rabid libertarian. I think he has mellowed out some, but yeah. The pizza deliberator. I mean, that's like another thing. Like, I guess I'll talk more about that in the future once I have reread all of that stuff by Freddie Jameson, because Freddie Jameson, of course, talks a lot about cyberpunk and claims that cyberpunk is the ultimate postmodern genre. So there's that. He even quotes William Gibson in like the first or second sentence of the introduction. So good stuff. But I think Snow Crash is a really interesting book. I certainly enjoyed it. I think I made a video about like where I see the problems with, like, it's still really entertaining, but it's very clearly written for a very specific target audience. That target audience is, nerds of the early 90s who really think that they are smarter than everyone else. And if you are not that kind of person, it can get very, very annoying to read. And I certainly was that kind of person when I read it. I hope I have moved on from that. I don't think I'm smarter than everyone else. Let's put it that way. Um, but yeah, uh, and that's a general like Neil Stephenson thing. I like Neil Stephenson because Neil Stephenson's approach to writing is like, hey, I got really, really, really into this weird fact like last year, and so I had to write a book so I can tell you all about it. So I come up with like a most ridiculous plot, so I can shove in 200 pages on Sumerian language, or 200 pages on monetary theory, or alchemy, or polo, or horse breeding for polo in the 1930s, in the 1930s America, which, yeah, stuff like that. And he certainly read a lot of Thomas Pynchon, which has sort of like changed his writing approach to writing over the last couple of years, I think. Yes, I do know Shadowrun, and I have played Shadowrun. We might still have some Shadowrun books up in our living room, where my flatmates and my tabletop role playing games are stored, and there's a lot of them. Yeah, Britain. I don't know if like you, but I could see you really liking Snow Crash as a novel. Yes. Yeah, Altered Carbon does have a lot of like relatively accurate predictions, I would argue. But that's mostly because Richard K. Morgan was always a very angry leftist in a lot of ways. He sadly turned very, very turfy over the last years. But so, and he has always held down on the irony. Like when you read his stuff, whether it's Altered Carbon or The Steel Remains, um, he does not do irony. He just tells you that shit is fucked up. And I think that makes it easy to read Altered Carbon, go like, yeah, clearly all the super rich are assholes. It's just written like this. And I think that helps. He has a new book coming out this year. Richard Morgan has No Man's Land, and I am still somewhat undecided what to do about it. Whether I will read it, whether I would talk about it if I read it, that kind of stuff. Because it feels weird if someone who is so concerned about transgender issues writes a book where a man with a shotgun, a World War II veteran with a shotgun, hunts down fairies that kidnap children. I I can see some potential troubling metaphors being worked through in that novel. I suspect he would not do that. He would probably use the money for something else than Labubus. That's just something I assume. Now, maybe that would work. I feel my problem there is that when someone talks about like reading books to children, I always have that scene from The Simpsons from the book fair, which I know is bad, but that's like the automatic image, which I guess is like it's a millennial problem, right? It's like we all have like had too much exposure to The Simpsons, so it's very difficult to think clearly without having random Simpsons memes end up in your brain. And rightly so, Britain. Although, and this is also important, oh, there's a book tip for you, Britain, specifically. David Harvey has a new book coming out in April, which is about capital. The book. Let me check the title. Yeah, because that might be something that you should read. Yeah, it's just called The Story of Capital. That makes sense. So yeah, The Story of Capital, which is mostly the history of the book and its influence and so forth. So and David Harvey is someone who has spent the last, I don't know, 30 years teaching Capital Volume 1, 2, and 3 to people. You can even watch his lectures on YouTube. It's a book there at the book fair, and there's a scene where Christopher Walken is reading fairy tales to children, and all the kids are incredibly scared of Christopher Walken. So that's the thing that came up in my brain when I read the idea of fairies reading books to children. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the thing, right? Like, that I said earlier, Jim, the thing from Frederick Jameson there, the idea that like using the word capital or using the word capitalism already makes you, uh, you know, paints you as a leftist in the eyes of the public, which is ridiculous when you kind of have to describe capitalism, right? So, yeah, the same thing with Marx is like there's the man wrote an awful lot, is what I'm saying. And you can certainly disagree with him, but you need to read him first. And he's not exactly constantly going like capitalism bad. That's not what he does, because he writes history and goes like, well, clearly this is the system that we're living under right now, and it has done all of these amazing things. He's very open about like how capitalism has been very beneficial, but the goal is of course to overcome capitalism to move further into the next thing after capitalism. But he does not go like, well, this was always bad, and was a bad idea from the start, because it's not about an idea. It's about like this is happening automatic. Well, this is happening because that's how history works, right? That's the underlying idea there. Yeah, that is very true. It has it has the he has the same skill there. But Britain, the thing is, the Communist Manifesto is something very different. It's a manifesto. It's not a work of history, science, or anything of the sort. It's supposed to be angry and get people riled up. That's the goal of writing a manifesto. You know what I mean? So you can't judge Karl Marx's work and understanding of capitalism from reading the Communist Manifesto. That's just not possible. Um, and as manifestos go, it's really a well written one. Yeah, yeah. Since we don't get the fully automated luxury space communism, I guess it will have to be the post-apocalyptic subsistence farming. Nah, I don't think they nailed it to church doors. That's something only religious madmen make. I guess you have to be a much more raging anti-Semite to nail your manifesto at a church door. Um, yeah, yeah, no shit, didn't you didn't get through Capital. It's a massive book, and it's not exactly written for easy understanding, is it? No. Also, Karl Marx really bad at numbers. Like there's so many examples where where his math is just wrong, and he just like failed to multiply two numbers or something like that. He's really really bad at calculating shit. It's funny. He's still right in like his the argument is still good, but the examples are really bad, which is really something that I've learned when I studied computer science. Right, like you have to go. Obviously, you take math classes, and you have to do a lot of like traditional university maths, which is mostly letters. Mathematicians really hate numbers. If you want to really, really frustrate a mathematician, make him actually calculate something with numbers. They will always fail. It's like we had this like a tutorial kind of thing with a tutor going through like examples and homework and shit like that, and a math class at university. And we go through this proof, and he explains that proof. And he's like, "All right, so let's do that like an example here. Let's actually calculate this. So for A, you take the number 2, and for the B, you take the number 3, and for C, you take the number 4." And then he gives us like 5 minutes to do like the actual calculations, and then we spent the next 2 hours arguing about the results because everyone fucked up in a different way with the calculations. So yeah, numbers are not the mathematician's friend. Um, yeah, you can read that. That's a good one. The China Mieville thing. It's solid, and he goes through it like section by section and so forth, and he explains why it is still relevant. So that's pretty good. Yes. Yeah, of course. It's short. It is written for. I mean, it was for the International Labour Party, basically. So it's supposed to be read and understood by people with very little formal education, and to get them all fired up to go and I don't know, unionize, I guess. It definitely is punchy, and that's I mean that's the goal there. As I said, like it's a manifesto. It's not supposed to be a 3,000 page analysis of political economics. That's not what it is. But yeah, the David Harvey one I think will be a good thing. I mean, he is one of the Marx teachers at the moment, has been for a while now, and comes from geography originally. Going like, well, I studied geography and city planning. Why are all the cities shit? And he's like, oh, I guess I have to look into this Marx guy. Maybe capitalism explains why all the cities suck. Turns out that was exactly what was going on. And yeah, it is definitely punchy. But I think, like, I mean, when it comes to like economic history, I would argue that yes, reading Karl Marx, definitely reading Capital, good idea. Also, definitely read Karl Polanyi's The Great Transformation. That is definitely the kind of book that has had a huge impact on all kinds of people who do economics and economic history, and it explains why free markets are, in fact, like unregulated markets are, in fact, a bad idea and don't necessarily work, and will lead to fascism. To be fair, though, physics is not as punchy as the Communist Manifesto. The thing is, like, being a capitalist in that sense of the word means being someone who has capital. In that regard, most of us, I assume, are not capitalists. We live under capitalism, that's fine. but, but very few of us do, in fact, own factories and companies and, you know, the means of production for other people, so forth. Unless some of you do, which is possible. In that case, you are a capitalist. But, you know, Britain is not a capitalist, which may come as a shock to you, Britain, but you're not. You may be in favor of capitalism as a system, but you are not a capitalist. Yeah, that is true. Applied physics can be very punchy. I wonder, I wonder if there's an argument to be made that the drive of physicists to make formulas even shorter is because of our shortened attention span, and no one would be able to actually read through like Newton's Principia Mathematica anymore. So they have to turn it down into like TikTok video size bytes. Obviously not, but yeah, but that's you know, that's a different thing there. Like, you can prefer capitalism over other systems. That's obviously your prerogative, but preferring that system over others doesn't make you a capitalist. It makes you just someone in support of capitalism, because you know, words do have meanings sometimes. Well, I mean, that Churchill quote I think is really weird because I don't have I never got the feeling of Churchill that he was, in fact, you know, of that actual opinion when it comes to political systems. He'd happily be in charge of any system that just decides that whatever Churchill wants is correct. And, you know, but democracy is, of course, I mean, it kind of depends on your definition of democracy. But like, if we assume that we want everyone in the society to have a word, you know, have the power to actually shape the future of the society they live in, then that's the best thing to do. And that, I feel, is, you know, fundamental in one way or another, whether you do that through like representative democracy or any other form, voting, drawing lots, whatever. That is something else. But like the fundamental idea that everyone in a society should have a word in how that society is run, then yeah, that's kind of what you need. Because other systems are worse. Yeah, and no, I think he has said it, but it's as so often there is context around that quote. And yes, that's the other thing. Like democracy isn't really applied. You're right there, Ori. I think what I found interesting is I just read Mutual Aid by what's his name. Uh, I need to look up the name. Anyway, it's from Versa Books from a couple of years ago, and it was free on Libro FM. So there's that. And Sean Pratt could be Sean Pratt. Yeah. Anyway, uh, and obviously it talks about ways of organizing mutual aid and organizing structuring groups in a way that everyone can participate. And the problem with that is, of course, size. Like the larger a group, a larger a society is, the harder it is to actually have everyone be heard and so forth. Because yeah, these things may get better with technology if we actually manage to build technology in a way that is not funneling power to whoever runs the technology. But yeah, there are limitations to how to apply democracy. Dean Spade, yeah, that's the one. Dean Spade, not Sean Pratt. I don't know what's going on with my brain. Yeah, Dean Spade, that one. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? In especially if you're in, I don't know if you're in the US, but like the way we have structured these our systems in a lot of ways means that you have to gamble at the stock market, or otherwise you don't have enough money to actually live through retirement the way that at least Germany has parts of that. The US definitely a lot of it's like using the big casino to fund pensions and stuff. It's obviously a really stupid idea, but it also is the that is definitely a very good, yeah. I mean, I always felt that Pantocrator is a really, really good title. So, what happened? All right. Well, I didn't say much beyond the fact that I feel that reacting to Thornall's idea of how to govern, I said that Pantocrator is a really good title. So, yeah, I'd like to be that guy. Well, maybe not. Interesting. Let me check what's going on. My internet seems to be stable, so I don't know what's going on there. Yes, the forces of capital. I mean, I'm using the free version because this shit is really expensive. And one of these days, I am going to actually figure out how to run fucking stuff on my own uh, computer and not use anything like this. Raccoonocracy. And that's like another thing that is so fascinating with that whole monopoly issue that we have going on. So I don't know, read The Curse of Bigness by Tim Wu, or maybe not. Um, uh, good friend of Cory Doctorow's, Timbu. Apparently, they are kindergarten friends, and one of them ended up doing antitrust work in the government, and the other one ended up doing whatever it is Cory Doctorow is doing, which is everything, I guess. No, Curse of Bigness, or his last one from last year, the latest one, The Age of Extraction, really good books about how monopolies are really bad for everyone involved. And with the internet, that's kind of the problem, right? Like so much stuff runs on Amazon Web Services, for example. It's like if they go down, yeah, we're all fucked. And we've seen that several times of late, right? When the entire internet has a big hiccup at some point because everything is run by one company, and that one company, well, it's run like a company, right? That does sound like already like the kind of future we're headed for to begin with, I think. Rat King on the toilet throne. Do some very punchy applied physics, I guess. No. Uh, So here's the thing that I find really interesting with Peter Thiel, and that kind of ties back to like Elon Musk as well, and a lot of these kind of people. Um, that if you read someone like Adam Becker's, what's it called, More Everything Forever. Yeah, that's the title. And there's another one. It's like what Tech calls thinking by Adrian Daub, I think is his name. And beyond, having probably having certain skills, different, big tech people, a lot of them have certain skills, right? Like I feel like Bill Gates was probably pretty good at coding and some stuff, right? Like there are skills, and presumably even Elon Musk has some skills somewhere, right? But what they don't have is formal education. And you have like so much of this is, I mean, Peter Thiel obviously famously has the Thiel Fund, Thiel Scholarship, or whatever it's called, where he pays people 250,000 or whatever it is if they sign that they will not actually go to university or go to college or drop out. So they are really, really against formal education. And it shows, because the thing with like formal education in one way or another is that you get better at reading and understanding. You learn a lot of like a lot of skills like reading comprehension, a general sort of like understanding of like basic common knowledge, right? Um, in German, we have the wonderful word Allgemeinbildung, which means basically, the public knowledge. Translating is difficult, but it's like it's the kind of education that everyone has, and that we presume everyone has. And a lot of that stuff is formalized education. It's formal education, whether it's in high schools or in college and university. And if you don't actually go through that, you will lack sort of like the skills that you need to sort of like figure out whether what you're doing right now is insane or not, and whether are actually on the whether you are talking about something that you know or not, like that level of like the Socrates kind of thing is like that you don't that you know nothing, right? Like that stuff you need to have. But if you don't have that because you never learned those kind of skills at say university or college or high school or whatever, and you then become so fucking rich that you don't actually ever have to care about what other people say, that's a really, really dangerous sort of like combination, because you lack all of those checks from the outside, and you never learn to have the checks on the inside. And that's a really fucked up kind of way, like, that is dangerous and harmful to the people in those situations. Yes, Peter Thiel is fucking rich, so he probably doesn't care that much, but like, I don't think it's healthy for your mind to be in that situation. I don't think Elon Musk has a particularly satisfying inner life. He doesn't come across as very happy to me. Oh yeah, the shock doctrine is a really good book. I agree. That's, yeah, definitely something that people should read. It's, you know, helpful to understand what they are doing there. Oh, yeah, that is definitely something that I have done a lot of times and continue to do. At the moment, I'm doing it with Jingo, which is definitely one of Pratchett's really, really strong books. Has stayed surprisingly, for a book that is about racism, especially racism towards brown people, and was written like in the early 90s. It has stayed surprisingly accurate and not actually gotten too problematic, which is, quite the achievement. Yes, that is also true. We do have that word as well. Ori. Well, I mean, he's supposedly taking way too much ketamine. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? He has venture capital and all kinds of other investment firms. Like, you might be right, working for like the most harmless of software companies, and then you find out that Peter Thiel has bought like 20% of the shares of that company that owns your company, and so forth. And suddenly you kind of work for Thiel. It's, Peter Thiel is the guy with the blood boy, the from the Silicon Valley TV show. Basically, he's also he's dumb as fuck, is what it is, and he's evil. And another person who, for whatever reason, spent their formative childhood in South Africa. Well, in his case, in now Namibia, at the time occupied by South Africa, with a very rich father in mining. In this case, uranium. Yeah, there are some parallels to Elon Musk, among other things. But yeah, terrible person. The book. The Contrarian by Max Chafkin is, I feel, pretty good. It's too kind with Thiel, I think. In that regard, I highly recommend Gilded Rage by Jacob Silverman. That one, I think, is very good to understand those kind of people. Yes, that's the point. Like, he Peter Thiel's father helped build that uranium mine when South Africa was, mining uranium to build nuclear weapons, which is cool. And they did that. So, and they did build that mine, and they didn't tell any of the black workers, the African workers there, that they were mining uranium, and only the white supervisor people were always behind glass and everything protected against all the radiation, and everyone else died of cancer, because that's the kind of family that Peter Thiel comes from, which says a lot. But the thing is, like, Peter Thiel's been recently on his weird sort of like antichrist trip, and Peter Thiel studied philosophy at university. And I think he actually has a degree, but he is so bad once again at like reading and understanding like the stuff, like the things that have come out from his like antichrist lectures. They show that like Peter Thiel does not understand the Bible. Peter Thiel doesn't understand anything about actual theology, but because he's very, very rich, he believes that he must be smart. And that's the kind of thing you find with a lot of these people. Elon Musk, believes that he's a genius. He doesn't know anything in many ways. I don't know about Zuckerberg. I don't think he claims to be very smart. But yeah, none of these people really have an understanding of like complex sort of like intellectual processes, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. They've just read a bunch of like old sci-fi and think that because they're nerds, they must be smart. No, intelligence and nerdiness are two very well are two independent variables. They are not connected. I mean, okay, to be fair, that was Peter Thiel's dad. Peter Thiel, 9-year-old Peter Thiel probably had not that much say in what kind of jobs his dad would take or not, right? That, but it's that kind of thing. Like you come from that background. You come from that background, and it becomes very difficult to not sort of like be in that mindset. Also, his parents were already radical evangelicals. Like he was born in Frankfurt in Germany, which is about 80 kilometers south of here, right? Um, and German evangelicals are really, really, really hardcore evangelical Christians in weird ways. And they moved to America to be among fellow people. So he was radicalized from the start in a way that I don't think Elon Musk was, right? Which is why Peter Thiel has always had a much more, a much clearer sort of like ideology or worldview in a lot of ways. Like he's always been very conservative, very illiberal. Yes, he claimed to be a libertarian, but right-wing libertarians are the kind of people who believe they should be able to do whatever the fuck they want, and if someone gets in their way, it should be their right by force of money, arms, or whatever else to make the world the way they want it to be, which is a very illiberal sort of like attitude. So he's always had that. Whereas Elon Musk, I don't think has had that much of a coherent political or coherent view on anything beyond hey, money, and uh, and has only sort of like, which is why he was so easily captured by um, you know right wing trolls on Twitter at the end of the day, where he goes like he just wants to be loved, and the only people who continue to show him love are the fucking Nazis. Of course, he becomes a Nazi. It's the same thing with J.K. Rowling, right? Like J.K. Rowling says one fucked up thing, her fans go like, "Hey, Joanne, that's really dumb," and all the Nazis go, "Hey, you're one of us now. Don't listen to those mean people." So of course she shifts right, and there's a bunch of people who have gone that way, and uh, Elon Musk, I think, is more that type, whereas Peter Thiel has always been right wing. Um, the same way that Stephen Miller has always been a massive asshole. Like, if you want to read like a book that will make you really, really angry, The Hate Monger, biography of Stephen Miller. Terrible person from the start. Yes, being rich makes it easier to be controversial. I like the Genghis Khan one. And that's my point here. Exactly, Britain. That's the things, like libertarian can mean a lot of different things, but when like Peter Thiel has claimed he's a libertarian, but I don't think he has ever been a real libertarian, right? That's kind of the problem. He has always been a very illiberal person. That's the fundamental thing, which is back in the day when he like 20 years ago when he wrote that thing where he said that he doesn't believe that democracy works, and he was like giving giving women and black people the right to vote was bad for libertarianism because those people will never vote libertarians. Like, well, maybe in that case you should think about what specific terminology, what, what specific definition of libertarianism you have. If you think that women don't want that, and if you think black people don't want that, maybe ask yourself why they might not want that, and then you might. But never that. He's just an illiberal person, and thinks that if he's in charge, then he can be a libertarian because he obviously wants to have like every right. But that's not how libertarianism works, and that's not how anarchism works, and that's kind of the problem there with Peter Thiel. I don't think Stephen Miller has ever smoked weed in his life. He doesn't come across as the kind of person who would do that. I don't know if he takes any drugs or possibly drinks, but that's maybe it. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who wants to unwind in any way. Let me put it that way. But yeah, just like a born asshole. Like, according to the biography, obviously this stuff is somewhat sourced, I guess. He broke up with like his teenage friend. Like, he ended that friendship because his friend was Latino. Once he realized that, once he realized the idea of the social construct of race, he was like, "Nah, I'm a racist now, so I can't be friends with you." At like age 13 or whatever. And you know, that's the point where someone should have really, really started bullying that person, because even if it would not have changed him, at least some people would have had the satisfaction of having bullies, Stephen Miller. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wait, am I breaking up again? I hope not. No, I can hear myself. I hope we're good. Okay. All right. No, then we're good. So, yeah, I don't know. Um, so there's a new Quinn Slobodian book coming out. Speaking of Musk and all that kind of stuff, it's Quinn Slobodian and another author, and I keep blanking on the other name. And it's called Muskism, which a guide for the politically perplexed. Which, from what I like, from what I read on the back cover, it's sort of like the claim is that if the 20th century was the century of Fordism, with your basic like Ford inspired form of manual labor and so forth, then the 21st century is the new sort of like paradigm of how to do economy shit is no longer building stuff, but is you know being Elon Musk, I guess, up to a point. It'll be interesting to read that, I think. Okay, yeah, yeah. That Miller racism is just like levels beyond anything. It's like that kid was an asshole, but it seems like his entire family seems to be assholes. From what I can tell, there was some beef between his father and Stephen Miller's father and Stephen Miller's uncle, I guess. I don't know. Once again, having shitty parents does unfortunately raise the chances of you becoming a shitty human being, and especially if those shitty parents have a lot of money, because then you have a lot of money, and having a lot of money makes it easier to be a shitty person. No, I don't think the claim is that he invented any of that. It's more that he is the same way that Henry Ford didn't pioneer all of the stuff, that he also took stuff from different elements. The whole concept of like factory culture is heavily inspired by plantation farms, slavery, and stuff. Right, a lot of this stuff has been around for a while, but I think the claim is more that he embodies this paradigm. But the book's coming out in April, and I'm going to read it when it comes out. And then we can argue about whether it's correct or not. I think it's just like maybe Muskism sounds better than Tealism or Andreesenism. And I don't want to live in Andreesenism, in the age of Andreesenism. A world in everyone has to a world in which everyone has to have a really weird shaped head. Yes, Quinn Slobodian and Ben Tarnoff, Muskism, coming out in April, 21st of April. Definitely something I'm going to read. I did not watch that interview, but yeah, certainly not. Certainly seems to be not the brightest kid there. That is definitely true. I mean, I don't know. Like, I just wonder how far. I mean, it's a general question. Like, obviously, it's like how far can certain political things right now further escalate? Like, how far can, say, the Trump regime go before shit actually breaks for them, not just for other people? You know what I mean? It's like, how far can they go? It's like, how far can Elon Musk continue to do his shit, his bullshit, before before it actually blows up? Because there has to be a breaking point somewhere. And now, obviously, everyone, I feel like most people would assume that it should have come like a long time ago, but it hasn't, because markets are stupid and very slow. Yes, the Black Company definitely is a good thing to read before the Malazan Book of the Fallen. It has definitely inspired the Malazan Book of the Fallen in a bunch of things, a bunch of ways. Obviously, you have the Black Company, and you have you know the Bridge Burners, and later on other armies in the Malazan Book of the Fallen that are very similar, like with the soldiers having all these weird nicknames, only being known by those soldier names, basically. For example, that kind of stuff is very directly inspired by Black Company. There's a scene in Gardens of the Moon that is basically taken one. Well, it's heavily inspired. Let's put it that way. It's very heavily directly inspired by something happening in the third. I think it must be the third. Yes, in the White Rose, the third book in the Chronicles of the Black Company. So there's that. Yeah, and that's saying something. A crazier version of Pat Buchanan is it's the kind of sentence you don't want to hear. Yeah, somehow there aren't that many chaotic, good economic geniuses out there these days. But yeah. So how far in are you with Black Company, Thornall? But yeah, I think like the main difference is that the Black Company is much more limited and focused compared to the Malazan Book of the Fallen, so it's easier to keep to follow that one. Plus, shorter books, at least in the beginning. So it's a good way to start training, I guess. So I guess about half that's are they in Roses trying to fuck around with Breaker, or is that the next part? That must have been somewhere around half, I think. I mean, the thing with like the first book is, if you're just talking about the first novel, or if you're talking about the trilogy, then that because they were like in these omnibus editions later on. But like the first one, yeah, is more or less a collection of individual sort of like novellas or short stories or whatever you want to call them. So feels very episodic in a way. Yeah, I mean, you can just read Malazan. Well, yeah, in that case, I guess you're somewhere around Raker, I guess, must be where the half point is. I think the story's even called Raker. Well. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, you don't need to read anything before reading Malazan. It's that something I've noticed is a lot of people who read Malazan and really like it and go, well, I guess I have to read the Black Company, then go to the Black Company and expect it to be like Malazan, and then are disappointed because the style is still very, very different when clearly it's, the other way around. It's like someone really liked Black Company and thought it would be cool to take some of these elements and put them into their own book. So I feel the other direction sometimes goes wrong, where people read Malazan first and then are disappointed by Black Company, when, reading the Black Company first and then reading Malazan has left fewer people disappointed, I think. All right, I'm going to ignore that comment about the bourgeoisie there, because it's either trolling or the kind of thing you really want to rethink. But yeah. Yeah, that's the danger with the Malazan stuff, like, right? I read No Life Forsaken in autumn. I was like, hey, this was really cool. And then I did reread Gardens of the Moon before the conversation with Britain. And then I was like, damn, I should just start Dead House Gates. And then I'm like, nah, I can't do that because if I start rereading all of Malazan right now, then all the other things that I want to do right now and kind of maybe need to and have to do will be put on hold for the next 2 months. Hey, Bedivere, how you doing? Um, I mean, the thing is, if you're enjoying Black Company right now, Thornell, and I hope you do, then there's nothing wrong with just reading some Black Company before going back to Malazan or continuing to read Malazan or restarting Malazan or whatever, because you'll have read a really cool, fun, and fairly unique fantasy series that has flying whales with tentacles, which you know it's pretty cool. It also has talking menhirs and other weird stuff. I mean, that's just like, are you enjoying Black Company so far, or is it too, I don't know, too Spartan in its prose style, or anything of the sorts? So yes, there is the plane of fear, and it's only mentioned in the first volume. It plays a larger role in the second book and in the third book. In the White Rose, a lot of it takes place on the plane of fear, and the plane of fear is weird. And there are wind whales. Wind whales are, well, flying creatures with long tentacles. There's also flying mantas and other stuff. Also walking trees and you know uh, teleporting talking stones. It's really weird. And I mean, as long as you really enjoy reading way too many parts about people playing cards and cheating at cards, that's something that Black Company does a lot. At least in the first couple of books, everyone is constantly playing Tonk. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting with Black Company's prose style is that because it is, first person narratives, and the voice of Croker in the first novels, at least when he's the analyst, right? Like his voice is a very idiosyncratic thing, and Glenn Cook has this weird sort of like he oscillates between like very sort of colorful metaphors and stuff, and then jumps into something that is very sparse and very Spartan in style. He doesn't use a lot of words to describe a lot of things happening. So then he jumps back to having something very, very colorful. And that sort of like oscillation in Croker style, it changes with other analysts, of course. Um, I think can be, I don't want to say off putting, but it can be a bit of a, I don't know, something to stumble over, right? Like a stumbling block for a lot of people. Maybe it works better if you have read a lot of like 1950s hard-boiled crime fiction, because they, I feel like, have a similar sort of like style sometimes. I haven't read any Orson Scott cards, so I will not comment on that. Yeah, I mean, you can just go and read A Little Big. I think you might enjoy that, Britain. The audio, I mean, the thing with the audiobooks is, of course, once again, that like the audio in Black Company, like the narrator switches between, when the analyst changes, the narrator changes. So you have some that are read by Jonathan Davis, who has done a ton of audiobooks over the years, like The Book of the New Sun, among other things, Snow Crash as well. Yeah. So, and like Mark Vitor is the one who does the Croker stuff. And there's two more, I think. At least two more. So the narrator changes, which makes sense, Yeah, Soldier Son, I guess, works as that. I haven't read Berserk, so I wouldn't know whether those two. But Raven certainly seems to have that energy. Yes. Robin Harbour wrote Soldier's Son, Britain. I'm so sorry, Michael. You should not be have to take notes. Oh, you mean The Great Wen? Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I have the next one, which is coming out later this year. I have that one on my list of stuff I'm definitely going to read this year. I know you have a copy of Little Big, and I hope you enjoy it when you get to it. Now, Gene Wolfe has the Soldier, has a different trilogy. It's the Latro in the Mist series, and they're called Soldier in the Mist, Soldier of the Mist. I keep forgetting, blanking on the names. One is called Soldier of Arete, and the third one is some other soldier thing. So I guess that's what you confused there, Britain. And those are about Latro, who is a Roman soldier in Roman occupied Greece, and also has been hit on the head while he's fallen and knocked his head, and so he sometimes sees things that may or may not be there. I I have some not exactly controversial opinions on Harold Bloom. I just don't think he's. Let me put it this way: Harold Bloom's authority has been wildly blown out of proportions, and his Western canon kind of sucks. And yeah, his opinions on fantasy are also not exactly the best. So but I guess if you need authorities to tell you which books to read, at least you end up reading Little Big. So there's that. Yes, the Buffalo Hunter definitely qualifies as Americana. It's horror, Western, vampires, genocides, all the stuff that make America great, I think. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like the thing with like the fantasy was like you either grow up reading fantasy as a nerd, and then it's like the thing that you start out your reading journey from, or you don't encounter it as a reader, especially if you know don't read that much after your school days, for example. And then fantasy always feels like this weird place where that only kids and really weird adults read, and then it's kind of difficult to get into that again from the outside. I think it's like it's easier to start reading fantasy as a kid than it is to slowly move into fantasy as an adult, I think. Robert Jackson Bennett. Wait, that's the guy with the drop of corruption, the tainted cup, whatever. It's all about booze, or tea or whatever metaphors thing, right? That, or is that another one? And I keep forgetting, confusing the names. But oh no, 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 Charlie. Of course, I've been reading fantasy since I've been a kid, and there's too much to read. My point was more that um, sort of like accepting sort of the premises of fantasy as this doesn't even have like pseudoscientific explanations the way that science fiction has. I think that is harder if you have not done that as a child or while growing up. If you have never done that and you've only read realist fiction or the kind of sci-fi that can masquerade as realistic by having numbers and stuff, if if you come from that perspective as an adult, I think it can be harder to break into fantasy. It still ends up, we still end up doing the thing where you will never read all the books that you should read. You will always, you meet another person who reads books. Chances are they have read some books that you have never heard of, and then you go like, I feel so stupid that I have never heard of this book. um, well, I mean, when it comes to that kind of stuff, put Buddha's Wagon on your TBR, Britain. It's a history of the car bomb, and it gets an audio release in April. It's been out for like 10, 15 years in print. Feels like the kind of thing you might want to read because it will be full of very interesting factoids and also some genuinely interesting history about how we build cities, what we consider to be dangerous, what we consider not to be dangerous, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm very excited for it, is what I'm saying, for reasons. Well, yeah, that's what Karl May said in Britain. He said the Book of Mormon is not as well written as the Bible, which he may have had a point there. As speaking as someone who has read both the Bible and the Book of Mormon several times, yes, it's weirdly written. Oh, what did you get, Ida? 7 books. That's a lot. Um, they might be, but Buddha in this case is spelled Buddha. It's the anarchist who blew up. It's an anarchist who blew up stuff with a horse-drawn cart that he had packed explosives on. So Buddha's wagon is, of course, that one. Because the car bomb starts with a cart. I guess it's a horse cart bomb. um, if you want to read Mormon history, I think currently the one that I would recommend is, if you just want an overview, Benjamin Park's American Zion came out in, I guess, January 2024, around that time. And it's really good. It's really comprehensive. Park is either Mormon or ex-Mormon, and he had access to a lot of like archives and stuff. So right now, I would say it's the most comprehensive and relatively short. Well, relatively short. It's so like 500 pages or so, but compared to some other stuff. So that definitely, and after that, you can pick and choose whatever stuff you're interested in. Um, that one goes all the way from like obviously early Joseph Smith and the Smith family, all the way to post the Mormon moment. So post what's his face, Bain Capital guy. So all the way until like basically the late 2010s. So that's the one I would recommend. After that, whatever you want. Yeah, the Mark Twain thing is funny. What's also interesting is that Mark Twain did in fact meet Brigham Young, um, because he was traveling with his brother, I think, and his brother was on a mission to Utah, to the Utah Territory before it was incorporated in the U.S. And Samuel Clemens traveled with him. So yes, we have notes of Mark Twain visiting Utah. Beers is also really cool. Like I feel like more people should read Ambrose Bierce. Very funny guy. Well, the fifth season is a really good book. I can tell you that. Oh, speaking of urban fantasy, very American. The City We Became and the World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, which is all about New York and stuff. I don't know. Britain brought him up, Liam. Hey, by the way, how you doing? Um, and I said that that I feel Benjamin Park's American Zion is probably the best introductory history of yeah introductory text to Mormon history right now. I am reading next after I finished the Enchantments of Mammon. Um, I will definitely read on Thursday when the audiobook comes out, Virtual Light by William Gibson, and then Idoro by William Gibson, and then of course All Tomorrow's Parties by William Gibson, and then I don't know something. I might have to read that if I can get my hands on it because Steampunk in Utah sounds like the Deadlands tabletop role playing game setting for Utah because you know Utah is full of steampunk stuff there. Now I don't know from when that so who inspired whom there. £3 is like a really good deal for fifth season. Oh, you remind me. I still need to continue with the Imaro. I only have read the first Imaro book, and I haven't listened to the Meal of Thorns podcast yet. But I have seen it in my recommendations on YouTube and your post in the Discord. I am aware it exists. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, and I really want to get back to Imaro. Oh, ah, see me forgetting shit. A biography of Charles Saunders was apparently published in January. So there's that. I should probably get to that as well because Charles Saunders, really interesting guy. The Enchantments of Money is about the intersection between capitalism and especially American Christianity, Protestant Christianity. And it's from 2019 by Eugene Mac. God, it's one of the most fucked up names I've come across in a while. Mac Caraher? I don't know. So yeah, it's a massive book. Like the audiobook has like 35 hours, so somewhere in the 700 pages area. But it's it's history. Ah, so the guy who wrote the Charles Saunders biography that just came out. Um, Good thing now I can put all of these things together in my head. But yeah, Imaro really cool. Like the first Imaro, I really enjoyed. What's so fascinating with Mark Twain's racism is that when you read the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, he is very clear on how racism against black people is bad, but he is constantly being racist against Native Americans, which kind of shows you how these sort of like how being progressive or is not like a universal thing. It's like he's slavery bad, being racist towards black people bad, but but the natives. Yeah, we could totally see them as lesser. It's just like really fascinating in that regard. Well, it's not an anti-capitalist rant. It's a history of American Christianity and its intersections with interests in making money. Obviously, it starts in the 1500s, and those were not necessarily what you might call capitalism, big C capitalism yet. So it's more about like how we value how Christianity incorporates the making of money into specific interpretations of Christianity and how that may or may not be a good thing. So it's not in that regard explicitly anti-capitalist. It might still be anti-capitalist. I don't know. I only read the first chapter, which is all about Milton and Paradise Lost and stuff. Because Mammon, of course, is one of the guys showing up in Paradise Lost. Yeah, I mean, I think like it's in a lot of ways it's oftentimes like the thing that we realize that something is fundamentally wrong, but if we haven't like oftentimes you need something sort of to confront sort of like a specific example for us to realize that something we have always just assumed in the background is in fact wrong or right. But I think that's sort of the thing. And like with Twain, he clearly is aware of. We can still argue about like the depiction of Jim in Huck Finn and stuff like that. Right, there is stuff to be done there and to be looked at, of course. I'm not saying like he's a an anti-racist warrior, right? That's clearly not what he is, but he's aware of the fact that the treatment of black people, especially during slavery, is wrong. He's aware of that. Maybe he had just never encountered enough sort of like native people or had any sort of like contact or anything that happened where he realized, that that's the same thing. I don't know, but it just like stands out in that book. Yes, I'll have to read James. I might get there. I like the two Percival Everett books I've read, both the Trees and the A History of the African American People as proposed by Strom Thurmond and told to Percival Everett and James Kincaid. That one is absolutely fucking amazing, and I'm sure I will love James. But I need to reread Huck Finn before I do that because I haven't read Huck Finn in like 30 years, I guess, something like that. Yeah, that's true. That is also true with Mammon. I feel that's the case for a lot of people, Thornell. Like a lot of people who grew up reading Anne Rice have a- more are more tolerant towards well gay people and black people than well other people. I feel in like a specific generation, like people millennials and so forth. I would argue. I have read one or two Anne Rice books a long time ago. Hey Joe, how you doing? Yeah, it's the party was supposed to be yesterday, and then I had to do had to listen to rock and roll music, which sometimes happens, and that was that. Um, yeah, I feel like Anne Rice is something you need to discover at 14, and then it will be, or 13 to 15, and then it will be the thing, or at least it used to be, because it's not that horny or anything of the sorts, but it Anne Rice is definitely more explicit than a lot of stuff that was published in the 80s that you could, get your hands on and go like, well, look, this is just a fantasy book I'm reading, and then you get stuff in there that goes further than, most fantasy did at the time, except for, the really weird shit. But so I think a lot of teenagers discovered Anne Rice as something, as an author who would be more explicit when it comes to sexuality and stuff like that, than but that's more like an 80s and 90s thing. I feel like we have moved beyond that, obviously, with self-publishing and so forth. Like the gatekeeping is no longer there. Oh, nice. Also, hi Jimmy. I still have to read anything by Clark. I mean, I think like for me, like the other thing with Anne Rice was that the old Interview with the Vampire movie with Brad Pitt and thing, it came out mid 90s, I think. So a lot of people at the time watched it because they just were had a crush on Brad Pitt or whatever, and that brought a lot of people who then went and started reading those books. So the movie definitely helped with like at least sort of like make familiarizing people with the name Anne Rice. At least over here in Germany, that was the case, where the books hadn't been that big before, I think. Writing Bible fiction is totally fine. Just ask Joseph Smith. I mean, don't. I have always been very agnostic on both Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise when it comes to their acting. I should say, when it comes to like personal behavior, oh boy. Uh, but that's not something 14-year-old me was much aware of, obviously. Well, I mean, Britain, like all big cities, smell awful. And if you are also, basically on a swamp, that doesn't help, to put it mildly. So yeah. um, well, Ceausescu's death definitely one of the funnier ends for a terrible dictator. Let's put it that way. Yes, that is roughly how it works, Thornall. I mean, technically, so is Bible. Yeah, a lot of people have written Bible fiction. Yes, the Divine Comedy, Paradise Lost. We just talked about like so much of like our pop culture understanding of Lucifer or Satan is just channeled through Paradise Lost because all of that stuff like the rebellion, all of those things, they are not exactly expanded upon in the Bible, are they? But if you read Paradise Lost, there it gets a lot of stuff. And yes, there is DLCs and patches and stuff with Mormonism. I think that's the one thing. It's like Mormonism is a very online religion. It is both like figuratively and literally, because obviously the LDS Church has embraced influencers and that kind of stuff a lot. But also with the whole idea of getting further revelations, you can always get more stuff like that in the future. So it's hopefully a good thing. I don't know. Um, Also, hey, Kat, nice to see you. So the thing that I have like the way I would describe the American, like the Trump regime right now, it feels to me like one of those children's birthday parties with like a with one PlayStation in the room, and they only have like one controller, and the guy. And the absent-minded drunk father only wanders into the room every hour or so and decides which kid gets to use the controller for the next time, and then they can do whatever the fuck they want. So if Stephen Miller gets the PlayStation controller, he does the things he's currently doing. If Marco Rubio gets it, he gets to, I don't know, do some regime change and abductions and shit in Venezuela, Cuba, or whatever, because that's the kind of thing he wants to do. At the beginning of the regime for a long time, Elon Musk had the controller, and he did, I don't know, whatever it is Elon Musk does, right? So it doesn't feel organized in that sense. Like you have all of these insane people with insane different weird hobbies and like personal obsessions they want to get through. And whoever gets the divine favor gets to play for a while, and that is then the official line of the government in every single thing, which is stupid. I don't think it's a very efficient way of running a government, much less an entire country. But who am I? I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in the Bible. I would definitely argue. And there's cool bits in the first couple of books. It's, my favorite prophet is, of course, Hosea. Definitely cool guy. There's some really intense shit in earlier books. Plus, of course, divine building codes in. It's still in the Pentateuch. I keep forgetting which. It's not Numbers. It is not Exodus. Obviously, it's not Genesis. Do I get my numbers, my Pentateuch together? Anyway, there is a rule that explains that you need to build parapets around the roofs of your houses so no one falls off and brings blood on the house. So in the long list of rules in the Old Testament, that's definitely one of the ones where, like, yeah, maybe this God guy had a point. Book 8 might be changes, yeah. Yes, Jimmy, that's definitely a thing. Like I mean, it was written during the time of Nero, so that does in fact track in a lot of ways. But it's definitely an interesting book to read. Revelation. It's just like also just like very weird, and I feel like it's definitely a very jarring shift of tone to what came before, like which is Acts and stuff like. No, I mean, what I find interesting is that a lot of like the older stuff, kings, judges, so forth, you can read as historiography. It's not necessarily very accurate historiography, but neither is fucking Thucydides or any one of those people. So, why not? S- Sea cat getting killed inside a sword is totally normal in Malazan. Just to be clear, so the Bible is very much like the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So maybe Stephen Erickson wrote Revelations. But maybe I will actually have to read Left Behind next year for like the Christmas reading. I think it has 13 novels, so it would fit perfectly, and it will probably drive me very much insane. I've watched that Caligula movie. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Maybe not. But it certainly was an experience for a 16-year-old me to watch the Gore Vidal Caligula movie. Yeah, Left Behind is pretty wild. Did you know that Tim LaHaye did in fact work with the for the John Birch Society for a long time in his youth? So yeah, yeah, yeah. Nikolai Carpathia is like so fucking. That's like Tim Apple levels of stupid. It is really, really weird, the Caligula movie, but it also has Malcolm McDowell in it, and that's cool. It is an experience, the Caligula movie. Our ancient history department from time to time has like a movie screening of it, and then talking about historical accuracy in historical movies. But yeah, if you can watch it, I highly recommend watching it once. It will certainly tell you a lot about like the 1980s and the power that cocaine had over our movie industry, I guess. Nikolai Carpathia. That's, yes, yes, exactly, Thornhill. That's kind of what this movie is about. That is true. um, but yeah, no, like I feel like reading the Bible is definitely something people should do once because we kind of have to live with that stuff. And just reading it once already gives you enough background knowledge to, you know, debunk a lot of people who constantly claim to do, claim the authority of the Bible for stuff. And you're like, yeah, but have you actually read that thing? I don't know why Malcolm McDowell is always in those kind of films. I think it was just that Clockwork Orange had just been released, which certainly put him on the map in a lot of ways, and maybe that was part of it. I don't know. Speaking of though, Malcolm McDowell is one of the voice actors narrating the this massive production of the Old and New Testament, New King James Version audiobook. Among a lot of other people, Samuel L. Jackson is also in there. So Um, so yeah, you get Malcolm McDowell reading. I think he does Noah, either Noah or Solomon. One of those episodes is narrated by Malcolm McDowell. So see how we can actually tie all of this together. Now, this I would argue that I mean, obviously, ideally find one in your language. Usually, you have like a each language has like a fairly solid sort of like authoritative version. I would always go with an Orthodox or a Catholic version because you get more books. Like your Protestant Bible doesn't have a bunch of stuff. You don't get Maccabee 1 and 2, and that's kind of really interesting stuff. So yeah, get the director's cut, the extended version. And after that, make sure that you have one that is linguistically relative, as accurate as it can get. I personally think like the King James version is fine. but it's old. It's like the same way that if a German would go like, "I'm partial to the Luther version of the Bible," it's like, yeah, but you know, translation has come a long way since then. We can be more accurate. We can actually, if the goal, like if I mean, if the goal of reading the Bible is entertainment and you want prose style and you want it to sound good, then pick the one that sounds the best to your personal tastes. But if you want, accuracy because you actually believe that, the stuff put into that book kind of matters and is, if if you're into the actual substance of the thing, then try to find an accurate, ideally a relatively modern translation, because yes, we have learned more. We have added context since like fucking 1600. So that's like, I feel like the main issue with the King James version is that it may sound nice, but it is no longer very accurate in a lot of ways. Hey Oso, how you doing? No, the Luther version doesn't have a bunch of anti-Semitism. That is stuff he wrote separately. Martin Luther, very prolific writer. Um, the Bible translation is pretty solid for the times and like the level of language that he knew. Well, I mean, Jen, of course, Bible and accuracy go together in that you want to get a translation that is as accurate as possible to those, different, sources that we have from the past, right? Like, unless you speak all the languages, unless you speak perfect ancient Greek, you might want to have a translation into your language for the New Testament written by someone who can do that properly. Same way for the Old Testament with Aramaic and so forth, like, right? That's the accuracy part there. And if you're studying this either because you, for whatever reasons, believe that it is in fact, the word of God or whatever, or because you're, interested in history and the sort of like development of ideas through history, then that accuracy does matter a lot. And at that point, the King James version, the old King James version, is in itself a very interesting historical document. If you look at like how it translates certain things and so forth, you can learn a lot about like 16th century England from reading the King James Bible. You don't necessarily learn that much about, I don't know, 4th century BCE Palestine, right? Why are you disoriented? Also, can we help? This is, a supposedly a Saturday stream that happened to move to Sunday because I had to go and drink beer in front of a stage whereupon hard rock was performed, and that's why we're doing this today. Also, it has turned into discussions of the Bible. I don't think that's much of a question there, Britain. Like being a Christian, especially being a Protestant Christian and being anti-Semitic, is something that has a long and proud tradition and it is still not over, right? And in this regard, he was just your average German anti-Semite of the 16th century. That that was very much possible, and beyond that, you would have to read a book on the history of anti-Semitism, and that might help. Or I don't know, maybe someone has made a video on the subject, and you can watch that. But the hard rock was definitely good, and God. Um, no, it was fun. Like three bands, two with women singing, all sort of like hard rock, psychedelic rock stuff. And well, I got this wonderful T-shirt, and it says "Drink beer and destroy," and it's it's the kind of message I can get behind, I guess. Speaking of, it's we've been doing this for almost 3 hours now. How is the general sort of like mood? Should we continue a little bit longer, or should we stop? Because I have run out of liquids for a while now, and my throat is getting dry. I mean, I'm glad you got to sleep some. Also, I think that is helpful, and I hope the situation in your wonderful city has maybe calmed down some more. I haven't checked the news today, which probably helpful for my sanity, if nothing else. All right, in that case, I will go and fetch myself another beer, and I'll be back in a minute or so. And yeah, please entertain yourselves until I am back. I guess. Drink beer and destroy is still the motto. All right, I'm back. Beer, beer. Yeah. That's a Korpiklani song, isn't it? Yeah, right. You mentioned earlier, while reinstalling Linux, you did reread Fire Upon the Deep. I have, I mean, I totally get it. It's like I am not that sort of like into the whole self-publishing area, so I have paid no attention to either the sci-fi or the fantasy or whatever that competition. I know Philip Chase was a judge last year, not 2 years ago, and now you are doing this. But like, I don't know. It's just another field that I haven't gotten into for, well, all kinds of reasons. The main is that I don't have even more time to do, you know. Same way I can't get into jazz because I know that would that would totally break the bank and my capacity to focus or learn about things. I'll stick with the punk rock and the heavy metal and the hard rock and the folk rock and yeah, nice. That is very cool, Jimmy. I should actually pick up my guitar again. Right now, for mostly for space reasons, my guitars and my guitar amp are at my in my flatmate's room. But maybe I should get that thing down again and then realize once again that having a 50-watt Marshall amp is definitely too large and too loud for 12 square meters of of a room, which is true. Well, I mean, I did go to the Monica Rocha big band concert in December. So I am listening to one specific jazz big band from Germany that does weird, really weird progressive jazz big band meets progressive rock, whatever stuff. Really cool shit and weird. And see that's the thing. Like in Germany, a lot of times it's like when people turn 18, that's when you get to that's when you get to drive cars in Germany because we get to drink beer at age 16 and drive cars at age 18. I think that's the proper way of proper order in this regard, because you can harm more people with driving than with drinking. So anyway, in lots of cases, like it's sort of like a casual sort of like tradition, like grandparents, put by money for a larger sort of like gift for like the 18th birthday, which special and all of that. Usually it's like, hey, we saved up so we can pay for you to actually go to driving school and get your driver's license, or maybe we'll chip into like your first car and stuff, because it's one of those sort of like big sort of rites of passage in a lot of ways. And obviously I could not drive a car, so at the time my grandmother was like, hey, I've saved up, and your sister gets the driving driver's license and stuff paid, but you don't need that. What would you like to have instead? And I was like, well, a guitar. So I got myself an Epiphone Les Paul uh, built, and a 50-watt Marshall amp, because that's what 18-year-old me felt was the correct investment. Yeah, I mean, I did start out on an acoustic guitar, and I so I had my flatmate's acoustic guitar at the time, my then flatmate, and he moved out, so I don't have an acoustic guitar at the moment. So I should maybe get myself one so I can get back into that, and just practice more with the acoustic before getting back to the electric stuff. We'll see. But then I also got myself bagpipes, and bagpipes don't need amplifiers. They This room is also too small to play bagpipes in. I can tell you that from the personal experience. So can my neighbors and their neighbors, I guess. Yeah, that's the point, Charlie. Right? Like, driver's licenses, driving school is insanely expensive. I mean, in this case, it kind of worked out because I have one sister, so with two, and my mother was an only child, my father was an only child, so if you distribute that over, the whole set of grandparents, it's doable, I guess. Yeah, with 40 kids, though, no, I have a yeah, that Epiphone Les Paul. I really love that one. It's just such a heavy guitar. Like, that thing's massive. And I have like a really cheap like Flying V knockoff because it looks cool and I got it for free. And it's a free guitar. I'm not complaining. And but it weighs like maybe half as much as as the Les Paul, which is just insane. Definitely. That Les Paul is the definition of blunt instrument, I would argue. Wow. Yeah, I mean, driving school is really expensive in Europe. Like, it used when my sister got her driver's license, whenever that was, early 2000s, I guess. It was something like 1,000 euros for the driver's license, roughly, depending how many lessons you needed, a bit more. But like, basically, it's around 1,000 euros in 2000s money. So I suspect it's more or less like the double that by now. I have no idea. But if we're going back to Chadia's grandparents, even if it's just 1,000 bucks for 40 kids, that's still 40,000, right? know, it still adds up. I mean, the thing there, bibliophile raised, like the question there is, of course, have you tried to learn an instrument? Because a lot of that stuff, I mean, there's talent, but there's a lot of stuff that you can also, depending on what kind of instrument you try to learn, maybe I mean, the piano is kind of different. I feel like guitars are a fairly good starting thing because you have frets, so you have like ways to know where the notes are. You can do all of that kind of stuff, so you can get that sorted out. If you really want to fuck with your own mind and ability, then get a violin because that one, or a fretless bass, of course. But get something that doesn't have frets, and you need to actually know how the need to hear the actual notes to know whether you hit it or not in a way that stuff like flutes or pianos or guitars for that matter don't require you to do that, but like you can learn playing an instrument up to a point. It's a skill like any other skill. So yeah, ideally you learn that when you have lots of time at your hands as a kid, and don't as an adult when or you can start again when once you're retired, if you live in an economy that still allows for that. But yeah, it takes a lot of time and dedication. Questions you always like whether you want that or not. Now, if you don't enjoy music that much, if you don't care that much about music to begin with, then you can read books instead, which is another way of spending your time and doing something creative. See, I mean, you haven't found. That's the thing, right? If you write poetry, that's a way for you to sort of like do the thing that humans do, which is create art in one way or another. We all find a way to express ourselves because these things have to get out somehow. When that can be playing an instrument, that can be writing poetry, that can be writing books, that can all of these kind of things. I feel like another thing, obviously, if you want to do music stuff, I feel like something that is fairly easy to low key to do is like join a choir, um, some singing group, because there's usually something like fairly amateur where you can start. You don't have to learn, and you can pick up stuff on the go. And singing with a group of friends is always kind of fun in that regard. So you have like the social aspect with it as well. It's like I don't want to do that. I mean, I go to concerts fairly regularly, and all we do there is sing and uh, sing somehow past all the possible keys. Yes, exactly. You need to be good with that before you go fretless. But if you play violin, you never have frets to begin with. Um, so and for that you need to have the hearing for that. And if you struggle with hearing like these things, then going fretless is not the best thing to do. But see, that's the thing, right? You don't have to be good at it. You have to be content at it. And you said that you are content. So, it's like, I mean, it depends on what you try to do with your poetry, right? I mean, if you want to sell your poetry, become rich doing that, then of course you have to apply certain exterior criteria that you maybe don't, external criteria that you maybe don't, could struggle with. But if you only write it for yourself or your friends or whatever, then as long as you write it, and that's the thing. Which is why I don't write poetry, because I'm not good at that. And I think I would overthink it too much, which is something I generally struggle with. Like even when I try to write prose, it's like I think too hard about every single word, and then I don't write the word. and just wonder what the next word should be, and can't decide on any of the options, and then I'm stuck. And that's the general problem. It's like, that's why making YouTube videos works so well for me, because I, I start talking and then I stop talking and then that's it. And I can't go back and change and edit every single word. So I usually go by, I record the video. And if by the time it is done rendering, which is usually like 4 hours later, if at that point I still think it's kind of okay, then I upload it. And if at that point I have realized that no, it's really, really bad, then I just re-record the whole thing. That's my way of tricking myself into actually doing something, because it's certainly very hard for me. I mean, I think the problem with talent is that it has this weird, that we have attached all this weird shit to it. So, but I do believe that there, some things come easier to us, each of us, than other things, right? And you can call that aptitude, you can call that talent, you can call that a knack or whatever. Like, some things are just easier for some people, and but everyone, like, if you want, like, you just maybe need less time practicing or whatever, like, or it just doesn't take as much energy for you to do the thing, but you still need to practice, right? That's sort of like where I come down, especially when it comes to stuff like music, right? I mean, there are people who have like perfect pitch, right? They can have like perfect pitch hearing, and yeah, some people don't have that. And I don't have that. And I will never, you cannot get that, right? You can, of course, train your ear so you can hear these things, but you can't. Some people just have that naturally, and that's a talent right there. Humans are weird. Yeah, that one showed up in my recommendations as well. I haven't watched it though. Um, I just like was really happy that I, like, once I started reading Halcyon Years, I was like, wow, I can make a dead cosmonaut joke and talk about undead cosmonauts, because it's a, a resurrected Yuri Gagarin. And I'm like, that is really, that made me very happy. It's the small things in life. Yes, yes, Ida. It's getting rich is not the point of art. The point of art is making art, and that's that. Why would you want to go to Tyrol? Tyrol, it's not that cool. Yeah, but that's the thing. Is like, spending thousands of hours and dollars is, the thing that's like, not everyone has that, and that's, once again, we're like, depending on what kind of, especially when it comes to music, I guess. It's very difficult to overcome some of these things, because the amount of work you have to put into that and the amount of resources you have to dump into getting good or whatever that means, like improving that skill, can be very hard. Maybe all of those RPGs have a point when you have to, spend resources to buy skills. Maybe there is something going on there. I don't know. I never know also. I mean, I feel like if ever there was a time for that specific type of comic, I think it would be now. And yes, that is exactly what is happening there. I have to grind down the horns, and it is unfortunately, an ongoing process. Yes, the mountains are pretty cool. That is true. It's, I mean, depending on where you are, like the thing with Tyrol is that parts of it are in Italy, parts of it are in Austria. You don't need to speak Italian. If you want to live there, I think you can get by with just German, but it's Austrian German, which is, and Tyrolean accent is insane. Like that's like learning a very different language from like German. Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I think like right now there's definitely an audience for that specific comic. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm excited for it. Yeah, I mean, Tyrolean German. Yeah, and then obviously like Southern Tyrol is technically in Italy, which is apparently where where American Air Force pilots like to cut down cable cars because they can get away with it, I guess. Well, go watch Hellboy or like read the Hellboy comics. I think that's a good investment of time. I'm never dismissive. No, no, no. Tyrol is nice. I've only been there like once or twice, and I guess the problem is like I have friends in Italy. My Italian friends are all from like Rome and like further south, and they are very, very dismissive of like the far north of Italy and well, southern Tyrol in particular. There's a lot of like weird dynamics in Italy. Like in Italian regional conflicts is a very weird thing. It's like everyone hates everyone, which is normal, and we all do that. I think like in every country, you hate the people from other cities, but Italians have like definitely made this an actual art form in ways that are beyond us mere humans and mere mortals out here. Which is one of the things that I found so nice in Paolo Bagigalupi's Navola. Navola. Um, because it's a slightly fictional, totally not Italy thing, state, but he manages to take that, make that very much like the part of the culture again. Was like everyone has all of these stories about the people from different cities that are all terrible and in all kinds of ways, and everyone in this city is corrupt, and everyone in this city is just violent. Everyone is, and said, yeah, that is having studied medieval history. Yes, that is a very accurate depiction of a medieval, late medieval, early Renaissance Italy, and it has never vanished. But yeah, no. In all seriousness, the thing is, uh, yeah, those are cuts because I got hit in the face with a door on this side, and I tend to scratch it open from time to time because I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's why it looks like that. And for whatever reason, I managed this time round to make it very symmetrical. So there's that. So yeah, but I guess I'll slowly wind this down. It's like 11:20 ish, I think. Yeah, something like that. So we can slowly end this. I mean, my goal is to go get up early tomorrow and do stuff. I assume some of you will actually have to go to work because this is for once not a Saturday where everyone else can still sleep in on Sunday, or sleep during church or whatever. But Kale already had to go to work because Australians. So maybe we should slowly wind this down, and I can then, well, listen to Jingo once again. Which has one of my, favorite Pratchett quotes, which is, of course, the one about, give a man a fire and he's warm for a day, set him on fire and he's warm for the rest of his life. Which, yeah. So, yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. I had fun. Thanks, Bibliophile Reads, for showing up for the first time. I'm glad you enjoyed this. I hope y'all had fun. And yeah, I don't know, go read some books. It's always a good thing to do. And yeah, I mean, maybe there will be some videos next week. We will see. So find out how to stop this madness. There's a button that says end stream. I will press this. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. Read good books and yeah, be good people. I think that's the basic plan. Cheers, guys.